Hello everybody, in this video I want to go over what I think analysts and casters alike miss when it comes to team fighting. So we're going to look at this fight between G2 and Excel, and I will leave links in the description to Kedro and Ellis's reaction and sort of analysis of this team fight, so you can go watch that, see what they say, and then I'll kind of explain what I think they're missing and why I think it's important. And it's something that I've talked about in previous videos, and I think it's almost a player tendency that makes their team fights more difficult. I'll also leave a link to the fight itself, so you can watch it with the original audio, and you can hear what the casters say as well, because they also kind of don't touch upon that. And let me play this fight so you can see what happens. The Alistar here is going to engage. The shockwave is going to come through, and it's actually going to pull back the rail, and so the ultimates are come through, and Tristana is allowed to free hit in the back line, and she gets obviously a lot of auto attacks, and she gets a triple kill. So XL win the fight, and this is a pretty sort of impactful point in the game. G2 do end up losing this game. I'm not saying they lose the game of this fight, but this is definitely a factor that makes the rest of the game a lot more difficult for G2 from here on. So I think it's a situation that's worth looking at a little bit in more detail to see not only what happened, but what could have been done from G2 to actually get a better result in this fight. Because that's one of the things that I think is an issue when it comes to teamfight analysis. If you listen to the casters, if you listen to, I think Kedro mentions this as well, this fight gets tied back to the draft. So this is what often happens is, when a team fight happens, casters and analysts tie it to whatever points they made prior and to the way they expected a fight to happen. So we have certain expectations. We make some points about the draft. The fight happens. It happens to match our expectations, and so we say that's why the fight was lost or that's why the fight was won. We already talked about this, and the problem with that is, while that might be the case, you're not exploring what options were not explored by the players as well. And so in this particular situation, the casters and Kedro were mentioning this is a front to back fight. G2 don't have a good front to back composition, especially compared to what XL have, because XL have the Sion, they have the Alistar, so they have a very good beefy front line, and they also have the Tristana and the Orianna, which are by themselves pretty safe. So both the front line and the back line work really well for XL, and they have a very safe team fight. Whereas G2, they don't have necessarily a good front line. They don't necessarily have good access to the back line, and other than the rail, they don't have good engage. So they're really relying on that rail to get the engage, which, I think rail is a pretty good engage, right? Now, the problem here with that is that, like I said, you're not looking at what G2 could have done, right? You're like, see, I told you so, that's what we were talking about, that's what happened, that's why they lost the fight. Now, the opportunity that G2 had, I think, is very obvious once you look at it. Once you know about it and you look for it, it becomes very obvious. So watch Udyr here and watch his movement and reaction to this fight. So I'm actually going to slow down this fight and play the engage so you can kind of see what happens. So the Alistar engages. The Udyr walks towards the Alistar, right? And he basically walks into the shockwave. Now, I understand that we have a much better view of this fight. We have a more expanded view. I'm obviously paused here. I have a lot of time to think and to look at this fight and this situation. And it's very easy to see that Udyr could have done this, right? And we'll talk about it in a second. But I just want to make sure that we are aware that I'm aware that obviously it's a very different thing to look at a situation and pause the screen, pause the game, and go like, yeah, okay, this was a bad move, and then compare that to being in the game and having to make that decision very quickly. So we'll keep that in mind. Now, the reason why this move is a lot better, meaning going after the backline, going after the follow-up, is I'm not saying that the Udyr here has to go after and try and kill Orianna or Tristana, flash on them and go for the kill. But he can just show himself there, he can walk towards them, and he can delay the follow-up. When he goes to towards the Alistar here, you can't undo the engage. The engage has already happened. There is still a stun from the Alistar, but the point here is even if you kill the Alistar, you're clumping with your teammates against an Orianna, and that's information that Udyr has. He knows that Orianna is in the game. He knows that Tristana is in the game. So if Alistar is engaging, he should be very aware that Alistar is not engaging by himself, even if he doesn't have perfect vision on where Tristana and Orianna are. And you should at least wait half a second and see where they're gonna come from before you clump with your teammates into a shockwave. Even if we don't talk about the benefit of going after the follow-up, we can see the negative of collapsing onto the engage with your teammates against an Orianna. And not only do you allow for a good shockwave from the Orianna here, but you also abandon a really strong position on the side here, which gives you that access to the backline. And that's the main point here, is that Udyr is on the side of the engage. So that's the engage. He's on the side of it. He doesn't have to walk towards the engage. And Jayce also did the same thing after he missed his shock blast. So Jayce here, shock blast, he misses, and then he does the same thing. He goes like this, and then goes after the Alistar, who just flashes away. Right, Alistar flashes away, and then the ultimate comes through, the Rumble ultimate, and he does end up dying, but everyone here gets caught by the sleep from Lilia. And so Lilia is also able to follow up from here and go into it. I wasn't able to draw that, but you get the point. So let's look at what could have happened. Let's say sort of a best case scenario for G2 if Jankos doesn't do this. Instead, he moves forward. Now, he doesn't flash, he doesn't commit, he doesn't split himself from the team, from his team. He just moves forward. Now, when Excel are engaging, you have to assume that, Torre here on the Alistar is, calling something out, whether it's, look at me, I'm going in, something. He says something to alert his teammates that he's engaging. That means that for at least half a second, right, Excel is focusing on their teammate in the Alistar here, engaging, and they're focusing on the point of engage. That gives that half a second for Udyr to walk forward and get closer to them before they can actually react. And so let's say he gets into this push, and there is a ward here from Excel, so they are going to spot him. But by the time they spot him, now they have very little time to react. So let's just focus on the Orianna here. So now you put Chocolat in a very difficult situation where he has to also make a very quick decision. Do I continue with the original plan and my original thought, which was Torres engaging, I'm going to put the bow onto him, and I'm going to use the ultimate so we can catch the Rumble? Or do I actually shift and go after the Udyr, who's, pretty fast, pretty hard to catch in the shockwave? It's one person. Do I do that? Obviously he can make either decision. You don't know what decision he's going to make, but at the very least you put him in that difficult position to make that decision. Now, let's say he goes through with the shockwave, but because the Udyr is coming, he notices the Udyr. As he moves forward, he notices the Udyr. He has to a little bit adjust and move to the side so that he, that's going to be kind of his instant reaction to seeing Udyr running at him. He moves to the side, and then he uses the shockwave. Then he, repositions the bow, uses the shockwave. That means you're going to delay the shockwave, half a second or even less than half a second, but you're going to delay the shockwave a little bit. Now, what happened here with the Rel? Well, she gets caught in the shockwave and is not able to get her ultimate out. Now, if the shockwave was delayed, maybe that doesn't happen, right? Now, let's say it's not delayed. Let's say Chocolat is, pretty confident. He ignores the Udyr. He walks forward, gets the shockwave. Rel gets pulled back. She dies. However, Udyr is not in the shockwave. Udyr is here. And as soon as he kind of sees the ball reposition, let's say he flashes forward because Udyr has flash. Orianna doesn't have flash, and this is something G2 should be tracking. Flashes, stuns the Orianna. Shock blast gets set up, so on a stun target, Wunder shouldn't be missing his shock blast. The Rumble ultimate comes in kind of like this on top of the Orianna and the Tristana, and now the Orianna should be dead between the Udyr, the Jayce, the Rumble. Tristana should be trying to find a way out of this Rumble ultimate, Maybe I've drawn it a little bit too wide here, but you know, we can assume that Caps is going to get a good Rumble ultimate, right? The Orianna's dead, and you do have the problem with the Lilia here, right? But like I said, Udyr does have flash, so I think he could get away from the sleep, or at the very least be able to get his stun, and then he should be able to, you know, survive long enough to kill the Orianna, and I think Jayce should be able to walk him out against the Tristana and against the Lilia. You know, again, when you change one thing, a lot of things can happen in a team fight, so it's hard to, I'm not saying this is concrete proof that, you know, you make just this little adjustment and you win the fight 100%. G2 still has to outplay, G2 still has to react properly, but you put Excel in a more difficult situation and you put yourself in a more easy situation to make decisions and react to certain things. What would be important here is that Jayce doesn't collapse together with the Udyr at the same time. So Jayce has range, he doesn't have to go into his melee form and jump on top of the Orianna, and then both the Udyr and the Jayce get caught in the Lilia sleep, and then it's a more difficult fight. So Wonder here can maintain this position and collapse only when he's sure that he can get a kill and get away. So that's one thing. So that's pretty much it. It's that movement there from Udyr that I think just destroys a lot of opportunities for G2, and this doesn't have to be a front-to-back fight. And that's why I don't like looking at fights as front-to-back, because fights are a lot more complex than just having a front line, having a back line on either side, and moving only in these directions, right, front to back. And it's not this linear fight. It doesn't have to be these linear fights where you go front or back. There's enough pockets of space on the map that you can use, and you know, certain champions can go over walls. You have flashes that can be used aggressively, not defensively, and you can, you know, get access to the backline that way. When your opponent has a good front line and a good backline, you can still get access to the backline. And so I think it's a much better way to look at fights as having a center and then having what I call wings, but could be called flanks or whatever you want to call them. Basically space on the side of that fight that gives you an angle onto the backline once your opponent engages. And once you look at the fight like this, I think you can say this is not a very good engage from Excel. It's also not a very good reaction from G2. And the other point I think I touched upon, that Udyr collapses this position here, and Jayce also collapses this position after him. And this position, this space here on the side of the fight, is very important and very useful and very impactful, because watch where Tristana goes to dodge away from the Rumble, dodge away from Jhin ultimate shots, and continue to auto attack. Watch where she goes to continue to be aggressive and continue to auto attack. Right? She dodges away from the Rumble ultimate and she uses this exact space which was left by the Jayce and by the Udyr to try and kill the Alistar. And so this space is very useful for either team. And so Patrick here uses this space perfectly, gets us a lot of auto attacks, is able to rotate around the damage and continue to be aggressive. So not only are you throwing away your own opportunities as the fight starts by moving like this, you're also giving opportunities to your opponent. And I don't think anyone mentioned this. And I did say this is a common mistake, and this is almost a tendency for players. So let me show you before we end this video, because it's already getting too long. This is Fnatic against Schalke. I have to go back a little bit. This is the same week, by the way, of LEC. And Schalke have Orianna, and they have Alistar, and Fnatic have Udyr. And you can kind of guess what happens. To me, this is the exact situation. Alistar engages. What does the Udyr do? He walks into a shockwave, right? Let's go back and watch it a little bit slower. Engage from Alistar, and Udyr immediately tries to go after the Alistar and stun him. Guess where the bow is going, right? This is almost the exact same situation, in my opinion. Now, it's a different fight because this is a 4v5 for Fnatic, meaning Fnatic has a numbers disadvantage here. So it's going to be a difficult fight for them to win either way. But instead of collapsing onto the center of the fight, when you have this position on the side, you can go after the follow-up. And in this particular case, you even have the Zoe who lands the bubble, right? And so imagine if Udyr was running at Abbedagge here. And let's say, again, Abbedagge has to make a quick decision. Do I flash away after I get hit by a bubble and Udyr's running at me? Do I use my ultimate first and then try to flash away? Do I just, continue going forward and it's fine if Udyr stuns me, I'm not gonna die, I'm gonna flash afterwards? Either way, you have to make a very quick decision. So again, you create the environment where your opponent can make a mistake. Not only that, Udyr also has flash, Orianna does as well, but Udyr also has flash, so he could walk into the bush, see that the bubble lands, and instantly flash, stun the Orianna before Abbedagge can react. He gets then chained into the sleep, and then Udyr is able to finish. The Zoe damage comes through, and maybe Udyr is able to finish the Orianna before she gets the flash away. Or maybe she flashes away, and then the Udyr has to run away from the Urgot, right? Again, it's hard to say what exactly happens and how the timing plays out, but definitely a better opportunity for Fnatic, in my opinion. So with that said, I'm gonna leave it here. Hopefully I made my points, and hopefully it wasn't too long. Anyway, thank you for watching. Most importantly, have a great day.